meditation object is the clear knowing, the certainty that comes through contemplation. The listening and the contemplating yield a certainty, a clear knowing, which then is the object of the meditation. So, for example, if our meditation topic is impermanence, to develop the precise knowledge that comes from meditation, the meditative prajna, the object of that is the clear knowing or certainty that arises in contemplation. It's based on ascertaining the meaning of the object of our contemplation that we have this clear knowing that is the object for our meditation. And when we engage in that meditation with that object, we develop the precise knowledge coming from meditation. This meditative prajna is an experiential understanding. It's an experience that is called the precise knowledge arising from meditation. But where does that come from? The precise knowledge coming from meditation is tied all the way back to the object of the precise knowledge that came from listening at first. That object of listening, from which we develop the listening prajna, is the object of our contemplation. When we develop the contemplative prajna, we take that to meditation and develop the meditative prajna. So each depends on the previous one. Developing the precise knowledge arising from contemplation depends on having developed the precise knowledge coming from listening. So when we say contemplation, what are we talking about? What we're talking about is we take the object consisting of the precise knowledge arising from listening, and we examine that through scriptures and reasoning, logic, by examining the words and the meaning that we understood at the level of listening, using scriptures and logical reasoning. We are engaging in contemplation. When we generate the clear knowing or certainty in contemplation, that's what goes on into meditative practice. So the object that we realize at the level of listening, the precise knowledge of listening, is what we use to contemplate, examining that object of listening with reasonings and scriptures until we give rise to the precise knowledge coming from contemplation, a sense of intellectual certainty, a clear knowing that then becomes the object of meditation. This is how it is that the precise knowledge coming from listening fuels contemplation, which then generates the precise knowledge coming from contemplation, and that fuels meditation and the meditative prajna.
당도 퇴섬 검숨 써야 되더니 시럽 넘버 숨 이 먼저 최년년 제기다 좀 봐. 디레 로비 인기 술네 퇴당 섬dembe 곰발라니 랍드 조르 성와 다 나랑도 디나라더니 책바 기부 숨가게 되니 남기 냠닝기 좀 바차강 송여래다 시 수림란에 저가제 선바제 범격 기부 중 전복이 냠는 상화 고름 아니 남기 냠닝기다 고름들 딘잔드는 어서 남바 상계배 캐치 거르레스 저어디나 시 수림란 내내 최선문도 성대 곰반 닝부르지바 남바 상계배 로레스 닝부디 곰바레 디 규디 퇴선레 최선 디숨가기 시디 트림래. 디디 트림래 시제. 최선 건도송 건반용 버치에서. 디 남버상게 별로 그래서.
Developing the precise knowledge coming from listening, from contemplating, and from meditating is the sequence of all Dharma practice. It's how we take Dharma into our experience or integrate Dharma. The master of Vasubandhu laid this out very neatly, saying, on a foundation of ethical discipline, engage thoroughly in listening, contemplating, and meditating. What this means is that whether we're talking about any of the degrees of spiritual maturity, the sequence of practice of the path, how we take the path into our experience, is precisely as Vasubandhu says. First, we lay the foundation of ethical discipline. Then we engage in listening, which fuels the contemplating, and that fuels the meditating, each of these developing their particular precise knowledge. This is the exact same sequence for practicing the path for all 3 degrees of spiritual maturity. In fact, if you ask, what is the distinctive feature of the Buddhist tradition, of the approach of Buddhist practitioners, this is it. Laying the foundation of ethical discipline, and based on that, engaging and listening and contemplating to get to the very essence of the Dharma through meditation. This is the tradition of the Buddha Dharma. And the way we get to that very essence of meditation, the way we integrate it, is by developing the cause for that, precise knowledge coming from listening and contemplating. What is the cause of that? It is the ethical discipline that serves as the basis. This is the tradition of the Buddha Dharma.
Oh, Did the Tusum Gumsum said the pre Tonishina. Manans numerary gimiti. Gi Nyamung Belashana. Telling of the 2-way shut said the Kandiri Lamna. Manzula cookie, then shopping the list take it off. Mansugi any kitchen head cookie, Manzula shopping the list. So, Nedri shopping the Jagure, any market telayore, market la doeg lamga dire, any it will list chicken to la run editing of the dilata, any Chala Gareno Guba, Nyosa Gawa Yoba, Tidusag Lamga Kandiyoba. The Thama, the name of the Samratangra. Samratan Shidigo, the name Digare, to be sheriff dovere. The Dinala, Tembanashi, the Langa Dinala do shopping market delele, Chala relation to Ta, any New Yogra. The name of Janyone store nalik, any storekeeper, store get store nalada, store zigra. If
we want to look at an everyday experience that illustrates this process of listening, contemplating, and meditating, something that we are familiar with in our everyday human lives, we can think of the process of developing a meal. So let's say we have a head cook that's arranging a meal. The process of listening is similar to that head cook laying out a shopping list of all the ingredients they need and telling us, well, there's this particular market where you buy this and that, and this is the route that you take to get there. This is the road you get there. These are the directions. These are the particular things I need. This is where you buy these or those things, how you arrive there, and so forth. As we take that all in and we understand all of those details, That's similar to the precise knowledge arising from listening. We've understood these details at this level. Then when we actually take the road, go to the market, see all the different things, once we arrive there, buy the things we need, get the things stored and ready to go, that's like the precise knowledge coming from contemplating. We've actually gone there and accomplished the instructions from the first level.
Hola. Gombe Jibadan Gombe Shirap Nira. Gombe Jibadi Garlam, Chegum Dang Jugum Nira. Ranzo da Kibu Chungi Lamdang, Kibu Tungi Lam Desula. Then Penamidaba than Lende Combadeso, Soma Chegum Zoro. Didn't Chebe Gomdang Chobom Nijagore. Didn't Chegum Dang Chogum Nijibadi. Because the Nyamung Shadow Cheba the Gomba, Chesumgi, Yul de la Cheba the Gomba Chigora. The Candere Lamnadini, and the kitchen and on a cook jigra, Tagi shopping Jesha with the two care the kitchen and a cook jigra. The Chegum, the did over. And the color Nyams and Yomare in a color cook Chigora. Any cook Jethan and the dining hall, the table on a shagra, the Jogom Jigora. The name of the Kadi color the Rogan check on a Saturday, the Ronjong Rasine. He goes to the name Gom Jebel, the name Gomjung in Yonki or Yonki or other. Did the Chigor Gombajibadan, Gombe Sherab give us Rimbani Dogora.
Then when we get to the level of meditation, there are two phases here. There's actually engaging in the meditation, and then there's the prajna, the precise knowledge that arises from the meditation. When we look at how we actually engage in that meditation, this involves resting and analytical meditation. So we actually examine as a meditative process, and we rest as a meditative process. Both of these are necessary. So, for example, if we look at the first and second degrees of spiritual maturity, principally the experiential analysis that's involved at these levels is the meditation on impermanence and karmic causality. So there is the examining aspect of the meditation and the resting aspect of the meditation for each of these. That's how the experiential understanding arises. But how do we do that? It's like the example of the cook who's preparing a meal. We engage in the examining meditation and the resting meditation based on the objects of listening and contemplating. So in our example, this is like having already heard all of the instructions and then actually gone to the shop and purchased the meals. Now, when we're at the level of meditating, it's like we're cooking when we use the analytical meditation. We examine in the meditative state, and that's like actually cooking the meal and preparing it and having it ready to go. But even when we cook the meal, we haven't actually tasted it. Now the cook sends it to the dining hall, serves it, and when we sit down and actually eat the food, we're able to taste it. This is like the resting meditation. It's the point where we're actually experiencing the flavor of the meal. It's the development of the experience that comes from the meditation. So it's the same kind of process as in our example. First, we actually engage in the activity of meditation. And out of that, we have the second level, which is the occurrence of the prajna arising from meditation.
Hola. Ini jegum dang samba jeba dang jegum jeba niga dini jeba niga la yoro sosro twa. Ini samba jeba di kachide ki jebaro. Gumbi ini jegum ki jeba di kanangde ki jebaro. Kachide ki jeba jene ngishi ki tawe dendi ini rangi simgile charne kanangdu korne dini. Ini 제바도 공부 제바 제네 이니 니시 게 델라 테지도샤 어디로 되네더니 조금 별맞네 제고로 인자들이 니가라 선발에 제바요레 이 조금 나야 제바요레 케버 그래요람 찍디 같이 되게 제바레 쇼핑 저디로 쇼핑 디기진난 제가 말어. 뒤에 거거든요. 아니 조금기 제바드 그래서 칸능되기 제바로. 최선기 제능이 쉽게 들어가디. 심라 저네. 되니 제바지기로. 심주된 전에 제바지기로. 뒤에 사람들이 칸능되기 제바로.
When we look at this analytical phase of the meditation, the examining, there is examining at that level. There's also examination at the level of contemplation. Both contemplation and the analytical phase of meditation involve examination in a way that is intricately detailed, very specifically detailed. So what's the difference? The difference is that in contemplation, the examination is outer directed, whereas in the analytical phase of meditation, it is inner directed. So what does that mean? That means that at the level of analytical meditation, we're actually turning inward to our own mind stream and applying the analysis to that until we develop this clear knowing, this certainty. When that experience of clear knowing and certainty arises, we rest in that. So we have this constant alternation between the analytical phase of the meditation and the resting phase of the meditation. The analysis is present in both the meditation and the contemplation. The difference again is that in the phase of contemplating, that examining, that analysis is outer directed, like when we're in the market shopping for the things and we're looking for the items. Whereas in the analytical phase of the meditation, that analysis, that examination is inner directed. We take the understanding from listening and contemplate it and turn inward to our own mind stream and examine that through this understanding, the precise knowledge coming from listening and contemplating. That's the difference with this style of analysis, this examination that is inward turned.
이게 다 최선 금숨 써야 되더니 먼저 저 당보디 len yang nyamdu 중앙에 들어가요. 저와 당부되기 때문에 렌야 디나가 상대.
So I hope that this description of listening, contemplating, and meditating also answers with completion the first question that I was given from the previous sessions. I received 5 questions from previous sessions, and this is the response to the first.
All of that the cups baba that any kibuchungi kibuchungu the timbe lam lo chus to us said the killer kegi tabdilla young Tresum Gumsum Kugure. Did that any digulakive any Yamningi tabdilla tabaje any some people in Nishiki any Nishiki with Nendeladine, Jagum the Jogumje, any compassion of cake. Chibar. Unijina. Tene na kibuchungu dang kibuchungu da tumo lamjela teba da samba kombache sona digi gyu mine ini kibu dingi lamla teba jebe nurung gyugira dini kibuchungu lamji kibu dingi lamgi minjera dini kibuchungu lamla teba da samba kombache de kasu ni kibu dingi lamla Twebadan Sambadan Gombajegi, Niduruma Chagra. The Zantini the Dada Kibuchungi Lam de la Gomjungi Sherab Kidikosu, Jiming in Yatena, Dikosudini Kibu Tingi Lamla Tusam Jena, Tebajena, the Tubi Sherab, the Tumo Maiva Yungra. Telatene Samjungi Sherabian, Sambadan Samjungi Sherabian, Tumama Yungre, Tumama Batana, Le Lavo. Any to Le Lavo, Kilake Le Lavo Yungre.
If we apply the meaning of this to the context we are arrived at now, that of the path of the initial degree of spiritual maturity, or you could say the path shared in common with the initial degree of spiritual maturity, which is turning the mind to Dharma, the way to actually give rise to this in the mind stream is also this process of the triad of listening, contemplating, and meditating. It is through listening to the teachings at this initial degree that we have the precise knowledge, which we take to contemplation. In that contemplation, we develop clear knowing, certainty, and that's how we actually undertake the meditation that gives rise to the meditative prajna, that experiential understanding. When we've actually done this, then this listening, contemplating, and meditating, that is the path shared in common with the initial degree of spiritual maturity, serves to ripen the individual, make them a fit vessel for the path of the intermediate degree of spiritual maturity. So you could say that the initial degree of spiritual maturity serves as the path that ripens the mind for the second degree of spiritual maturity, the intermediate degree. And it is by means of undertaking listening, contemplating, and meditating at the level of the initial degree of spiritual maturity that one becomes a fit vessel ripe for the path of the intermediate degree of spiritual maturity. When it's done in this way, and the experiential understanding consisting of the precise knowledge coming from meditation at the initial degree of spiritual maturity arises, then we're able to use that for the listening in the intermediate degree of spiritual maturity. That gives rise to the prajna arising from listening at that intermediate degree. And it does so in a way that's extraordinary. It's a very particular and special way. That then fuels contemplating, and it gives rise to extraordinary precise knowledge arising from contemplating, and in turn, extraordinary precise knowledge arising from meditating. What does extraordinary mean here? It means it happens very readily, very easily. And it not only is it easy to undertake the steps of listening, contemplating, and meditating, but it's also easy for the corresponding precise knowledge to become active in the mind stream.
Hola, 최섬 곰숨 세드니 더불무치기 최섬 곰숨 투머르 제반이 취기네 만으로와 예송래 디니 퇴바체 선바체 곰겹스리 기부 중을 남라 퇴바체 선바체 곰겹 디니 사람마라 기부 중을 남라 선바체 곰바체 곰겹네 귤레기디 이니 기부 딩기 남라 퇴바체기 디니 딜바브라 딜라드네 저바체 삼바체 공격드니 기부침비 람라 퇴바 삼바 공바체기 딜바바 어디도버치네드니 람 호마호마라 최성군주지 공원공마라 기 람라 최성군주지 고치도그라 마도 애니 남고 퇴바지 삼마사 드니 신의 삼바체 애니 삼바지 삼마사 드니 공격 드니 타르드니 여마로 인디 람모 이름바 호마호마라 최선 검숨 산나드니 공매라 최선 검숨이 주고라 이디 인름바 호마호마라 최선 검숨 사드디 이런 공마라 최선 검숨 제기 고급 체도로 끝나가라서 람가 나궁지 나라드니 람발라 토르스 켄 도그라 토르스
알레.
랑고라 토르스 켄네 도디거수 아니 모두 곰바르레 보디거수 모두 토르스디 베로 체는 모두 리텔 두고요나 체는 나훈나라 그 모두 토르스디 링그란토 당고 스텝 고츠 서데네 리테 버두 아니 설부 속인기 토르스 요마라 드네 고구마라 드네 요마리 고게마라 근데 디도버들이 가서 당고 상교 고험 모두 최바 상마 살 드니 신의 검계디 디로 고구마라 디로 용투구마라 디인디다 가르 구그릴로나 나도디 토르스디 나도 토르스키 회디 tombagang 텔라 둥체르 둥 텔라 이만 드네 미지여레 코드네 리텔라드네 공다 쳔라 도구와라 나드디 ngara tumangshya kare samlu tangare thana tangbo dene chosam de chasang sar dene sambache dene sine gom kyap dilo samgo ara dene chosam gomsum girimba de dilo mare lama omala chosam gomsum chasang dene dene gomala chosam gomsum che di gomala chosam gomsum che dene chebada samba gomba sumdi pelma chene dogora 이 퇴바 상마 devjera 사 디지라 되니 신내 선바제 퇴바 상마 살살도 거다 되니 nga도 소남네 상계 있어요 상마 퇴네 되니 찌게 퇴좀 매버서 되니 선바제 되니 검게 되니 손으로 단 거라가도 어디로 그거 말에 이러고 영토고 말해서 되는다 되니 람림바 오마라 퇴성 것은 타네 고마라 퇴성 것은 고체도 그래 퇴성 것은 제네 고마라 퇴성 것은 제고 그래서 pero 샤나드니 nga도 chen la hu na la torch ke ne to na then tourist thing also destination but the chadang ladani saltuking tours yomara in a dine gugumara mato tourist laval kene dine gumbachik pona tourist the gumbachik moon la dura the also destination level go to tourist the angatho the destination the yora where did the legra the dine also gumbare yaport go to tourist the gumbare yadugra also yadu the tourist the mahla de mara the goes to the didn't sigare 최선 군순대 대대 제거래 손 라마 엄마들 최선 군순 살때 가서 라마 엄마가 최선 군순 털친지 가서 드니 람 고마라 시럽 펠도라 람 고마디 통도라 말에 통도 로마 자기라
네.
람 고마라 퇴바제 선바제 드니 시럽 야야도라
The Lord Gampopa, when explaining listening, contemplating, and meditating, says that the unmistaken way of integrating the Dharma is precisely this: to first listen and develop the precise knowledge from listening, contemplate and develop the precise knowledge coming from contemplating, and meditate and develop the precise knowledge coming from meditating. But it's talking about a very specific way of doing it. Often we might think we have to listen and contemplate to everything before we ever get to the meditating. But what this is saying is that first we engage in the listening, contemplating, and meditating at the level shared in common with the initial degree of spiritual maturity. Once we've brought that to completion, we've invoked the threefold precise knowledge of listening, contemplating, and meditating in our mind stream. That means that the time has come to embark on listening, contemplating, and meditating at the intermediate degree of spiritual maturity. And then we do that, listen, contemplate, and meditate, developing the corresponding precise knowledge for each. That means that now the time has come to embark on the optimal degree of spiritual maturity with its corresponding listening, contemplating, and meditating, and threefold precise knowledge that go with each of those. So what's happening here is that each of the previous paths is opening the door for the next approach. Each of these degrees, once brought to its completion, opens the door to the next, and then that one to the next. It's not that we have to do all the listening, contemplating, finish that, and then actually engage in the meditation, shamatha, and so forth. That's not how it works. The way it works is through a process of each previous stage serving as the method for opening the door to the next. So we're actually engaging in listening, contemplating, and meditating at each stage, and that opens the door to the next level of spiritual maturity. That's what allows us to actually engage in the next piece of listening, contemplating, and meditating. In this way, we're going step by step in a progressive process. It's kind of like if we had to go to a far destination, maybe a high mountain peak in the dark, and we have a torch to light our way. That torch lights our way step by step. We don't need the torch to light the entire path all the way up to the mountain top. It's not necessary, and it's not even possible. We won't find a torch that's powerful enough to light the entire way from where we stand all the way up to the mountaintop. And not only is that not something that we can have, we also don't need it. What we need is something that lights our way as we go. And that's how this process works. It's not that we have to listen to everything, then contemplate everything, then develop shamatha and meditate on everything once all that is done. If that were the case, we would never arrive. It's not something that we can do, and it's not something we need to do. Just as in the case of the torch that lights our way, what we need is just enough to get to the next level. When someone is going to this high mountaintop in the dark, all they need is enough light for the next piece. And just so, we don't need to do all the listening, all the contemplating before we actually engage in the meditation. How it works is we do the listening, contemplating, and meditating at the initial degree of spiritual maturity. That's what activates the mind to engage in the intermediate degree of spiritual maturity, where we engage in that corresponding listening, contemplating, and meditating, invoking the precise knowledge at that level. And that opens the door to the third degree of spiritual maturity, where again, we engage in the corresponding listening, contemplating, and meditating, and invoke the precise knowledge corresponding to that. So there's these phases of listening, contemplating, and meditating that alternate through each of these different levels. In that way, we're able to step by step get to the destination. We don't have to do all the listening before we do all the contemplating, and do all the contemplating before all the meditating. Not only is that not necessary, it's not really likely to work out that way. The way it works is we do the listening, contemplating, and meditating at the initial degree. That opens the door to the same process at the corresponding amount of listening, contemplating, and meditating of the intermediate degree. And that leads to the corresponding listening, contemplating, and meditating of the optimal degree. In that way, it's like going to the mountaintop in the dark of night with our torch. We don't need the torch to light the entire way from where we stand all the way up to the peak. And we won't even be able to find one that's strong enough to do that. All we need is to light our next step. The light of the torch is enough to get to the next step, one step ahead of us. Then when we take that step, the torch is one step ahead of us again and lights our way for that much farther down. Just like this example, the phases of listening, contemplating, and meditating with their corresponding prajna take us step by step, each previous aspect of the path leading us to the next. Once it is completed, brought to its perfection, the precise knowledge that we develop from that then opens the door to the next stage of the path. And as that precise knowledge grows, it makes us fit, ripe for the listening, contemplating, and meditating at the next stage. That's what allows us to, again, invoke the precise knowledge corresponding to that stage, and so forth.
다 대단한 독가스 바바드니 기부 주문 당 투모엘람 로치스 좋아시를 가브레 다 로치스 좋아 쳬베텔라양 당도 최선 건숨 다다 씹어내신 부그레 디인리다 최선 건숨 제세디 된 로치스 좋아 제베 탑 텔라 제바다 삼바 콤바제고 그래 어디인데 드니 로추도 조지베 탑디 거르리람 가성 공도 시바나지 이니 미다바 체디 미다바 임바 신고 그래 이니 레군데 신고 그래 드니 연송기 님이 신고 그래 디숨디 조르 다치당 연송이 님이 시에서는 레군데 난다 두고라 되라
Mm.
이내 곰겨도 거다. 곰겨도 디거래라나. 이다바 고매다시 인연송기 님이 고매다니 이 레기를 고매다 숨. 밍남 디숨다 공부. 곰겨기 미바. 디숨다 밍네 곰나. 드니 거리세 그래 쳇들라 심발로. 쳇들라 로도 이 치마 드니르게 삼바게 그래. 이게나 추기 자와마도 애니 자와 신라 로미 주바. 추 코나 두고도 삼배 삼로데 계기를 했습니다. 이따기 로처스 도와서야지. 아니 추 코나 두고도 삼배 삼로게는 이 로처스 도와래서라로. 추 코나 두고도 삼배 삼로데 그네스케 고그래. 라나. 이게라 치마 드니르게 삼바게 고그라. 치마군도 고방 통고도 삼배 삼로데 계고그라. 치마군도 고방 통고도 삼배 삼로게 해야들라. ini mida bayin ba samba dan ngensong gi nyemi samba legin de samba jisum la ming ne de komna yego
Engaging in listening, contemplating, and meditating at the level that we are explaining in the four dharmas of Gampopa, namely the mind turning to Dharma, is, as I explained before, principally for the mind to turn to Dharma, we need to understand the impermanence of this life, the transitoriness of this life. In addition, we also need to understand karmic cause and effect and the disadvantages of negative rebirths. These are the three main points that serve as the means, the methods that turn the mind to Dharma. By listening, contemplating, and meditating on these, we're able to develop this mindset that turns to Dharma. So the way it works is that the principal objects of our meditation, the principal focus of our meditative practice is first the transitoriness or impermanence of this life, then the disadvantages of the negative rebirths, because the negative rebirths are a possibility, and that depends on understanding karmic cause and effect. These are the three frameworks, the three focuses for our meditative practice at the initial level, the initial degree of spiritual maturity. It's what overturns our fixation, obsession, and preoccupation with the things of this life. It also gives rise to the mindset that urgently seeks to accomplish the benefit of future lives. When we have that mindset developed, then there's this sense of I will ensure that I accomplish Dharma alone, that everything I do goes to the Dharma. That's how we're able to engage in the mind turning to Dharma, not only in Dharma activities, which obviously are already directed to Dharma in their content, but even in non-Dharmic activities as well. This is the mindset that everything I do shall serve as Dharma. And how do we give rise to that? We do that by developing the mindset that seeks the benefit of future lives, that seeks to accomplish positive rebirths in future lives. And the way to develop that mindset is by listening, contemplating, and meditating on the teachings that allow us to develop the meditative understanding of the impermanence of this life, the deficiencies of the negative rebirths and karmic cause and effect.
Hola. Indi jadi gomdi dinero. Manto ta midagbe gomdi dini nela mimba. Midagbe lo nalma yangdawaji kiego na digi yalala ngensungi nimi gomba dan lende gomba ni chango kore. Gomba sum di tsona dini shine dini midagba shine dini manto chima dinir ki samba de kegre. Pero chashana to khangbaji zogona kodang gihungdang dini ceiling dang floor dang di thangwa changora mare. Dini di sudi go tango gozo gihung so dini kodang gihung ni jar dini thog gyap dini khangbachagira. Dini di part suzu zogora. Dini di thangwa su jardi go dini khangbachagira. Khangbachi. Dini ashida kibu chungu nyamnen dila dini nyamnen ki chashi mangboji. Dini tangbo gyula gyawachi di thangwa su cho na dini nyamnen zo di kegira. Dini nangshi. Chima dinir lo di kya la gara gugure lamna tangbo gom sum de sango. Nyensung nimi gomba dang. Midaba gomba dang. Dini lende gomba yawa. Di migba soso sumro. Migba soso sumdele migne tangbo gomre re gyap. Dini di sum chikdu tsona. Dele dene dini chima dinyogi lo chima mayimba di kegira. Dini dini gomsum di chima dinyogi lo kiyagi gyure. Debuchi kiyala gyu mamu thangu gula mare. Gyure rigi kiyagi mara. Kiyari rigi kiyagi mara. Dini dika midaba gomba dang, ngensungi nimi gomba dang midaba lende gomba sumla dene chima dinyogi lo chima mayimba kiyagiri. Kiyaguwar.
These three meditative topics are necessary to be complete in order to develop this mindset that completes the initial degree of spiritual maturity in an authentic way, in a natural way. We need the meditation of the transitory and impermanence of this life, the disadvantages of negative rebirths, and karmic cause and effect. All three of these objects of our meditation should be understood in their completion. We need all three together in order to comprise that method that gives rise to the mindset urgently seeking the benefit of future lives. It's kind of like constructing a house or a building. There are lots of different parts to it. There's the doors, the windows, there's the floor, there's the ceiling. And when it comes time to do the building, we gather together all of the parts, and then each part gets put in its place. And when they are put in their place and constructed together just so, they are able to construct the house. Similarly, when we're looking at the practice shared in common with the initial degree of spiritual maturity, there's lots of different parts that come together. There's different pieces that fit together. And we first gather them together. The meditation that yields understanding of the impermanence of this life, understanding of the disadvantages of negative rebirth, and the understanding of karmic cause and effect. And all of these three are what give rise to the mindset that seeks the benefit of future lives. Each of these three individual focuses of meditation we bring to completion, and then we put them all together in their places to construct the method that gives rise to this authentic, extraordinary mindset that urgently seeks the benefit of future lives. So you could say that the cause for that mindset that is directed at favorable rebirths in future lives are all three of these meditations: the meditation on the impermanence of this life, the deficiencies of negative rebirth, and karmic causality. Because the way it works is, to get a particular result, it's not necessarily a one-to-one relationship, one cause, one result. Any given result will be created by a combination of different causes. And here it is all three of these focuses of our meditation that give rise to an authentic mindset directed at the benefit of future lives.
Chua midaba dang le gunde dang nyasungi nyemik sum di ini rere yang subject kachambora di le gunde sedi kachambori yang nyasungi nyemik sedi nyasung la da nyasung sum dang nyasung rere la yang din nangsegi ewa mangbo ere disugi dungan nyungsul dang diso hachang kachambora di indi gosu da ini diso la chusum kazi kachamboyo na tegasa gomdi kachamboyo ngoro dini ta di re la ene gom kaze ge dini sambu chungna di sum soba la dene dini chima denyer gi lo de dina ji pusum soba dang khabar chen yongro ina yang ngarang sa da kapsa da dise nima any the session game of the yomore din za dini mado da midaba relation de keba share down the leg de relation de keba share down yanzong ni nemi relation de keba share gi dis yomara tanda ngaran sa da overview di zo shigre del tene ne zo shigre timado ngado ne relation de share tu mara overview de ha gona dini ngado ni gebadi dini number 237 dini kigre kashi kin사이를 살바여는 dini 237 kashi 닝과여는 dini kin사이를 어디 인자들은 되는 거라서다 relation 도 개발도 두고 말아 이네다 포인트 신고 그래
Each of these meditation topics, the impermanence of this life, karmic cause and effect, and the defects of the negative realms, are incredibly vast. Each one of these are very detailed, very broad topics. Karmic cause and effect is an immense topic. If we want to examine the negative realms, the negative rebirths, this too is an incredibly vast topic. There's lots of detail to it. There's 3 general negative rebirths in 3 realms, and each of those have a lot of detail. So there's a lot of different subdivisions to each of these. And because it's so vast, because it's so detailed, to do it complete justice, it takes a lot of time to understand those, and correspondingly, the amount of time it takes to meditate on each of these is also very vast. If we have that kind of time frame, then we're really able to generate that mindset that urgently seeks the benefit of future lives in a very particular way, an extraordinary, abundant way. But in this particular set of teachings, we don't have a whole lot of time. It's 8 days of teaching. And there isn't time to go one by one to all of the details of impermanence of this life, all of the details of karmic causality, all of the details of the negative realms and their deficiencies. So principally, I'll be giving a general overview of these topics. And with that general overview, even if we can't get down to all the nitty-gritty details, that general overview will be enough to engage in listening, contemplating, and meditating. Whether we're new students or old, it will be possible to get some level of understanding through listening, contemplating, and meditating using this overview, even if we're not able to explain each in intricate detail.
Hola, tenemos chiwa mitaba ani samsuldi khasam ngazu shebanashire ngebar chiwa namji chamme ba chigem dongba chiwa samba sumgi bone samgugure 대한 수 두셔나더니 치외 넘바 검술 나라 창용으로
The way to contemplate impermanence is, as I explained in previous sessions, the general framework are these 3 points for contemplating impermanence, consisting of the certainty that we will die, the uncertainty as to when we will die, and that only Dharma is of assistance to us with respect to our death. This is what, in general, completes the way to contemplate and meditate on the Dharma consisting of impermanence of this life.
다 체들 릉도 미네바 치와 삼네 아니 치마 펜체도 치와디드니 먼저 메시와당 축감반나시 균체드라야 마임바 치와서나 체디 나와디 눕 치미 나와 샤레기 고수그러 들어가서 치와라 그러마도 아니 축감반나시 균체드라야당 메시와나시 균체드라야 요 말에 그렇습니다. 센서리 좀디 균체야 말어. 센서리가 균가야 말. 인자들이 쉬어 값수 개와치만 내야기더니 규단 괜찮은 상여로 치미 나와 샤레기. 인자들이 쉬어 값수 그리고 균체도 말에 연결 개와치만 닝섬절 그래. tinza teni shiwa sayari tsedigi nawa nup chimi nawa shayagi gotsube negabdila shiwa lar chimi nawa shayagi gotsudi kosu dila bardo lar bardogi nawa yang nup ne teni kiawa jima nup rudi eni kiawa jima di musu nintam jaragi teni 능삼자력으로 띵거랑서 니마를 얘기 미세던 찍발해서 먼저 니마 찍라더니 챈라더니 니 쿠도 되고서 니목이 나와도 눕더거든 되는 찍발해 니 쿠도 내가 눕으래 시디고서 땐도 눕더라 탑체중 개발 도상 찍발해 님이 나와도 눕더디 가서 되는 거다 니쿠 된대라 집에 가서 뒤지고 지간해 니 국선에 니람 당도 이 버드 나와 지고 세디 나와지 눕네더니 연결 나와셔야 고투 남도셔야 고투도 고투 버드 나와셔도로 니람 당야 지고 니 서섭 쳐도 니람 당으로 니 두고고도 니람 당 말아 세디 나와 눕네 치미 나와 마셔 내가들 니 두고고 나시러 좋아하는 애들이라 근데 남도 요알레서나 버드 나와 고투도로 이 니람 당나시러 무슨 니 서섭 쳐서나 니람 당으로 니 두고 가서 니람 당 말아 이 시와 니 두고 나시래 버드 나와도 그래 니 서섭 전에 니람 당하다 그래 니람지 세서는 양쇼객이 나와도 시작이라 성령이 님에 나와도 시작이라 이 교제만 집어라 교제만 인삼 잡아 집어라
So what is this process of death? What is happening in this process of death? Death is the name we give to that time when the appearances of this life wane and the subsequent appearances begin to dawn. That's what death is. It's not like water evaporating or a fire being extinguished. It's not some kind of extinction that happens at death. Sometimes science might have descriptions of that kind, that death is just an extinction. But from this standpoint, what is happening here is that at the end of this life, all of the causes and conditions are present for the appearances of a subsequent existence to arise. That is the process of death. Death is that name we give to the process of the appearances of this life waning, starting to fall away, just as continuously the appearances of a subsequent existence begin to dawn. It's the setting of the occurrences, the experiences of this life that provides the opportunity for the continuum into a subsequent existence. That subsequent existence is in this perspective called the bardo, the interval state. Then as the experiences of the bardo or intermediate state start to wane and fall away, that gives rise to the opportunity for the experiences of the next life to arise. There's a continuum that's unbroken and continues in this way, and we call that death, bardo, and rebirth. Actually, every single one of our days in this life is exactly like that. We experience the various things that occur in our day, and then we, at night, when we lay down, we label sleep the occurrence of those daytime experiences falling away, setting, or waning. It's the same exact process at death. There's the same kind of continuity at death. There is a difference as to their relative strength or impact. The intensity of the process at death is greater than the lesser intensity of sleep, but in effect, they are the same process. The daytime experiences wane and set, and we label that sleep. And that gives the opportunity for the experiences of dream to occur in that same continuum. That's what we call a dream. In the process of death, the waning of the experience of this life opens the door to the experiences labeled the bardo. That's when those experiences have the opportunity to arise, just like a dream experience has the opportunity arise as the daytime experiences wane, and we call that sleep. If we don't sleep, we don't dream. Until we actually sleep, the dream experiences do not have the opportunity to dawn. Similarly, the subsequent experience after this life, called the bardo, has the opportunity to dawn. It begins when the experiences of this life wane. They start to set like the sun as we sleep. Just like in dream and sleep, if we don't sleep, no dream happens until the experiences of this life fall away, until they set and wane. The bardo experiences do not arise. But when the experiences of this life do wane, it gives the opportunity for the bardo experiences to arise, just as dream experiences arise in deep sleep. And then at the end of our sleep in the morning, just as we awake from the dream and the experiences of a new day dawn, at the end of the bardo, those experiences end and a new life set of experiences dawn.
The because the name and the birthday now done in Kiva Jimin Hardy Le Chig Devura. Now the condition and similar surgery. Similar condition leg king shagra, leg puncture carrier shagra. The in the Danganzong Ninsum Penatundula Kiagi Layana. Didn't want to shit because it said now in the Nubra. That Chimina Sheregi to Solera. Because the Chimina Garcia and Narangi Sim in Naladine, Keva Jama Keva leg puncture carrier, D now the Herga. Tanga Tundula Kiaina. In it to do leg Baksadi nowadays, Shere go to the didn't burden our shadow. Nala Bardinawa didn't to do league in our shagre. In a Kiwamone Maradi, Mundoro, track Radi. Then Bardinawa the Nupsana and Kiwajimi now only the shagres. Tini lechig do res. Tundugi now, Tundugi, now only shagra. Tell another Tundukiwa Lela, Tundulin some Tundukiwa and some jarla.
As the experiences of the bardo wane, as they set, and the experience of the next life begins to dawn, each of these are the result of karma. So experiences refers to various appearances and experiences that mind encounters. Where do these mental experiences come from? They arise based on the condition of karma, the various habitual imprints that have been laid down by karma are what govern the experiences that arise to mind. If, for example, at the time of death, there is active karma for rebirth in the negative realms of animals, as the experiences of this life wane, as they set, the time has come for the experiences of the next life to dawn. If those experiences are governed by the karmic imprints of an animal existence, then that is the set of experiences that will begin to arise. The karmic imprints for an animal existence begin to dawn in the bardo or intermediate state. These are the experiences that mind encounters in the bardo. You can say that there is an animal bardo body experience that dawns as the experiences of this life wanes. It's not exactly a future rebirth just yet. It's kind of a preview of the rebirth that's to come. And as the experiences of that animal bardo body wane and set, then the actual rebirth as an animal begins with its corresponding experiences dawning. This process is given the name, it is labeled taking rebirth as an animal.
Hola, tiene da dringa do kewachima sedila ringdu mene ba chiwadi eni mundu gyurna eni chiwe jesu me shiwa da chukamba na shin gyunche do mayimba eni kewachima la dogu gure ta kewachima la dosa de tendo ngendo nisu ngebare gyunchen garre la na kewachima de legi dogure lela kewada migewa nisu ngebara lela sanada lela chidang Kevada Miguel Lumaden Sum Shigre, Lumaden la Teguya Mara, Lumaden la Tebu Gag Nibayamare, Sabin Ruban Hires. That Tebu Gag Nibayabadi Kevada Miguel Nira. The Tebu Gag Nibayabi Lela, Kevada Miguel Nisungiba in them, Dig Tebu Lion, Tendo the Gendo Nisungibara. In the Kevachiba Pengela. Rosa, Tendong and Nimato. You mother maybe continue in the leg just Lela Ralever, Lela Chitang Keva the Miguel Loma than Sum Shanayang, Tebuki, anybody, then Keva the Miguel Nere, Nisugiver.
When we speak of the time for future rebirth coming, again, it's not like the time of death is one where water simply evaporates and nothing is left. There's this continuity that moves forward. And that continuity, the result of that continuity is governed by karma. The results are either positive or negative. Why is that? Because the results depend on karma. Generally speaking, karma has three different kinds. It can be virtuous karma, non-virtuous karma, or neutral karma. But of these three, neutral karma is simply a seed, a karmic seed. It doesn't have the capacity to generate a result. Of these three general kinds of karma, only positive and negative karma have the ability to generate a result. Virtuous karma and non-virtuous karma have the strength, the capacity to yield corresponding results, positive or negative, which is why, generally speaking, the possibilities for a future rebirth are either positive rebirths or negative rebirths, depending on whether the karma that governs is virtuous, yielding a positive rebirth, or non-virtuous, yielding a negative rebirth. So generally speaking, there are only these two general possibilities, a positive or negative rebirths, because it depends on karma. And of the three general kinds of karma, the neutral karma does not have the capacity to generate a result. Only positive and negative, or virtuous and non-virtuous karma, have the ability to yield a result, which are corresponding to the karma, either positive for virtuous karma or negative for non-virtuous karma. Therefore, there are these two general kinds of rebirth.
Hola. Tiene da Kewachima Pensela, Dogu by Tosta di dendro ngendo nisu ngeba. Di samlo tangdi, teni nga to legi wangi ngendo la yang kesi bara. Teni ngendo la kiena kandisi yung gore. Di gom goya di gesi, samlo tang goya di gesi gore yaso. Di la samlo matana teni legi ndia siya diyang, teni tiba china, dungal yung gore, gewa china, dewa yung gore siya diyang, sikta mato chagmare. It doesn't move your mind. Maybe it can be create more ego and pride because you become the scholar, right? You think I am the scholar, only the scholar who knows the legunde. The legunde doesn't work, doesn't help you to chima dinner loki al pingma thing. The legunde the effective chayla garagorlanga. Nga shi ni ngin song de kyo ya sigiro chima phenchela doye de dosa dendro ngiro ni yore eni ngin song la kyo ya sigire legi shewang ro ti le mi kyo sa ngin song de doya sigire gasi do na de ne kare yong gre. This is a crucial point. Usually we skip it, we don't want to meditate on. That means that's why we are missing the crucial point. That's why our practice is not effective.
When we're considering what happens, how we proceed into future lives, and that the options are only two, generally speaking, positive rebirth or negative rebirth, it's absolutely vital that we consider that it is possible that dominated by non-virtuous karma, we may take a negative rebirth. It is essential that we consider, well, what happens if that occurs, if a negative rebirth follows? It's really important to contemplate this. It's really important to consider it and meditate this. Otherwise, if we just have this understanding at the level of words alone, that wrongdoing yields negative rebirth, virtuous activity yields positive rebirth, it's a very superficial understanding, mere words. It doesn't move our mind. Maybe it even creates more ego or pride, because this very superficial understanding of karmic causality makes us think, oh, look at me, the great scholar who knows all about karmic cause and effect. And instead of developing the mindset that eagerly seeks the benefit of future lives, it doesn't help. Our understanding of karmic causality simply develops more pride. To be effective, we really need to take this to heart. When I die, it's possible that I will take a negative rebirth. There are two options, positive or negative rebirth. These are completely dominated, governed by karma. Where I end up, where this next life goes, is an important thing that for us to consider. It's a crucial point, but we generally skip it. We don't want to go there. We don't want to meditate on that. And we're missing the crucial point. This is why our practice is not effective.
Tela nginsung gi nimik gom go gre sung ka nginsung gi nimik di gom ne ini nginsung la ke sung na kare yong gre sola meba se tube meba imbala ngishi ke wa chu mare nyong ke gre sung ka sin nga nginsung la ke sung na ini nginsung gi dungal di se tube yo mare sambe de sola meba imbala de maybe Nishil and Yuan Tingre. 연송기 동안 가져 공고 그래라나 지신 딱배 희규리 용화 맞은 봐도 공고 그래서 연송기 동안라 지신 딱배 희규리 용화 희규와 땅 두배기 되니 냠냠 마셔 봐도 공고 그래서
So when we're considering the disadvantages of a negative rebirth, this is what allows us to develop an effortless, natural certainty, clear knowing, and experiential understanding of the deficiencies, the disadvantages of taking a negative rebirth with all of the suffering. What we need is to develop a very powerful certainty, a clear knowing of how unbearable the suffering of the negative rebirths are. What we're going for is to generate a very powerful, very visceral, very immediate sense of the suffering, one that actually moves our mind, an experiential understanding that is intense and powerful and immediate in character. We should continue meditating on the sufferings of the negative realms until that happens.
가서로 아니 니시를 녀왔던 봐. 디 용해라. 당부 년송기 그는 녀와를 동을 그래 요래 디신고로. 녀와 가세요래. 아니 녀와를 동을 용술 그래서 요래. 디인도 가서더니 디상마신고로. 이나엔다 나서 단다 누누인 단네 디 상마 뒤셔나더니 냐와라 사랑기 동al 이달라 태공기 동al 둔돌라 치기 사회 동al 당 꼴주기 동al 디스음 말에
말에
어디에들이 년송 숨기 동al 되던 제수 tumbe 동al디 간솔라 단다 열어 간솔라 사랑기 동al 도와 태공기 동al 도와 디인자들이 난지 냠뇽디 빼지네 드니 년송송기 동al 되라 제수바나 드니 슬라메바인 발라 미시 당투로 디낭 디인디 가서 드니 당 년송송의 예배 차랑 조금 기 동al디 아니 ngransol라 된다 미 리데네 예배드니 차랑 당 조금 기 동al 되라 켜버 거래 요랬었나 먼저 미 때라 예배드니 차랑 조금 기 동al디 슉슝슝으로 대전의 맛에 뒤인 통통으로 대전의 맛에 애니 될라양 설탑이라 세야기 탑시여 나도 장나 둘로게 요래 사나 에어컨디션 타야 요래 라서바 근데 둥알기 세야기 탑시여라 나도라 또 년송송로 그래 요래랑 근데 둥알 사랑기 둥알이 하장 톱침보라 근데 뒤유름 보라 내가 세야기 탑시여 말 켜버리라라. 먼저 동알디 칠집에 탑이죠 말. 사랑기 동알 숙침부 유름부 영화들라 슬리하게 탑시요 말에. 디에도 가서 델라 섬르다나 되면 난송기 동알 사랑기 동알디 먼저 미 동알레 개규 동규기 쳐와인 봐. 숙체라 유름화 설탑 매봐. 텔라 섬르다나 되니 나랑 저 토도 밤나 근데 영설에 디 제스 바토그라 Tade nyamnyung pe lang na. Yarga tsawa tsawa nyamnyung dan gunga tangwa nyamnyung. Di pe la lang ne, tene nyawa tsarangi dungal di. Dan compare jena. Tene tadang ransu mi lidin le yewe tene dungal chungchung, tsarangi dungal chungchung diyang se tuku ya mare. Di nyamnyung di pe lang na, tene kasi nyawa tsarangi dungal todo baso na tene kande yang sare, se tuku ya sa mare. Di tene nyamnyung la sharwa che. Tene se mi tube tsurwa, tsunang ma ke bardo gomgo gore sa mare.
The sufferings of the negative rebirths are unbearable. And what we need to do is to develop our own experiential understanding of that. We need to understand this with clarity, have clear knowing that is experiential in character, born within our hearts of just how unbearable that is. So how do we do that? For example, if we talk about the hell realms, what are the sufferings of the hell realms? This involves knowing things like how many different kinds of hell realms are there, what are the general characteristics of each of these kinds of realms, what are the particular sufferings and how do they come about. If we're going to go into detail, all of these details would be examined. But if we don't have that kind of time, which we don't in this context, we can generally understand things as follows. When we speak of the three negative realms, the suffering of the hell realms is described as intense heat or intense cold. The suffering of the hungry ghost realms are described as powerful hunger and thirst. And the sufferings of the animal realms are described as preying on one another and servitude. So these three, the hell, hungry ghost, and animal realms consist of the three negative rebirths. And they have these particular kinds of suffering that characterize each. But when you look at these, heat, cold, hunger, thirst, etc., we have a taste of these kinds of suffering. We have a sense of what these are like in our own human existence. We can use that experience as a basis and extrapolate from that. We can come to a powerful experiential understanding of how unbearable the suffering at these negative levels would be based on the experience we have in our own human bodies. For example, it's easy to connect with an understanding of the suffering of the heat and cold of the hell realms or the hunger and thirst of the hungry ghost realms. What's the difference between those realms and our own experience of these as in a human existence? It's a distinction as to the relative power, how strong the suffering is. For example, the heat and cold of the hell realms are much more powerful than the relatively weaker experiences of heat and cold that we have. We have relatively weaker hunger and thirst than the hungry ghost realms and so forth. Not only that, but relatively speaking, the amount of time that we have to endure heat or cold, hunger and thirst is much shorter in a human existence than in a hell realm or hungry ghost existence. And what's more, not only is our experience of these weaker, not only do we endure it for less time, but we actually have ways that we can ease that discomfort. If it's extremely hot out, we can use an air conditioner. If it's very cold, we can resort to warm clothing. These are not options at the negative realms. So the distinction is that in these negative rebirths, it is far more powerful, the intensity of the suffering, the amount of time that that suffering continues, and the inability to access any means to relief from that suffering. These are the differences, the intensity, the amount of time, and the lack of any means to gain relief from that. But we can use our understanding in our own human life and imagine, extrapolate from that. What would this be like if it was far more powerful, far more long lasting, and I had no way to resolve that, to gain relief? Think on that. Think on that until you're completely certain, extrapolating from your own experience how unbearable that would be. We can use the experience of a long hot summer with no relief in sight, or a similarly cold winter, etc., to have a sense of the suffering of the hell realms. Really use your capacity to generate this understanding based on the experience in our own human existence, how absolutely unbearable the suffering of heat or cold in the hell realms and so forth would be. And to consider what our experience would be like if the suffering was so much more powerful, so much more long lasting, with no relief in sight. Consider how unbearable that would be.
Hola, tinaji dini ngazo tanda mi le dini jebe tekom gitu ngal chung di ngazo la nyamnyong yobadi ini pesha ne dini ngazo suemi tu ba pena ngazo nyama ni sa dini khala masa dena ngazo gi da pombo dictator chi yana digi ngazo la da tawaji khala masa ne dela na tawachi mo ni me sum khala masan dira na kala khawro ni me sum bhajan ni me chigla khala masa dena yang ni kala khawro ni me chi chasan bhajan ni me chigi na la dina nga so breakfast and dinner kanu ji masa ne ni kala khaw thru goro ti do ni ani tegum gi dungal ki nyamnyong chung di yang se tu khabo yime ani nyamnyong di pela shane kasi ngaran so hidala ki ne hidagi dungal de thodo bamna dene kale so dare samlodana zetube me bedne nyoa samlo se chig du dana tene sela meba zetube meba yimbedne nishi nyuma tumbaji yungre esumda tela simtezi seji de shana gomra de di gomji be gechim boysa ine ngazo mangchewa di ine di gomji ko se chigda da yungro tela ngazo de gabo yomaro ngazo skip chigre. That means we get lost the point. Then if we get lost the point, then other practice get lost the effect. Niba meba chagre.
Lare. We have plenty of experience of hunger and thirst in a human existence. We can use this example and extrapolate from that. When was the last time you just couldn't bear your hunger? Think about what it was like, what it would be like to not be able to eat for a day or 2 days. Think about an entire month without eating. Forget about it. We couldn't even do 3 days without eating, without experiencing discomfort. Forget about 3 days. Even 1 day is hard. let's face it, we're hungry between breakfast and lunch, between lunch and dinner. This is the kind of experience we have. We can connect with our own experience of hunger and thirst in every single day. And yet, this is far lesser in intensity, in duration, and in the ability to relieve it than the experiences of the preta or hungry ghost realms. We can use our experiences of the difficulty in tolerating hunger and thirst to extrapolate how much worse it would be in a hungry ghost experience, and really use our own experience to develop an experiential understanding of what it would be like to have a hungry ghost experience of hunger and thirst of such intensity, duration, and inability to relieve it. This is something that we need to think about in a very one-pointed way, really plant that in our mind in a very single-pointed way so that we're able to develop a very immediate, visceral experience that we could not bear it. We need a sense of clarity, a clear knowing in an experiential way of just how unbearable that is. And once we develop that experiential understanding, we stay with it in meditation, one pointedly focusing on that experience of unbearability of the suffering. This is really important. Usually it's a fearful situation. It's gruesome. So we don't like it. We skip it because it's unpleasant. And so we lose the point of this meditation. And if we lose the point of this meditation, our other practices lose their effect. They become ineffective.
Hola. Tina si dini tunde tungal yang aso chikla chik sawe tungal kolchogi tungal so dinira. Chikla chik sawe tungal dingaso penataran tanda mi lidin la mosquito gi so gyamna yang sekala khawodo. Good night maparna tetumido. Tin because dini ngaso mi lidin la mosquito gi so gyawe dini tungal chungjung diyang se khabodo. Tela samudana ngaso tunde lidin la ngus kene tunde la chik sawe chik sawe tungal dang seba da chebe tungal nanze todu baso na tene condition sare se tuwe meba imbe nyamnyong ngishi la nyonga tuba yongre.
Then we can look at the characteristic sufferings of an animal realm rebirth. For example, one of the sufferings is that animals prey one on another. They hunt and kill and eat each other. How do we understand that from the perspective of our human existence? What example can we use to extrapolate? Just think of a mosquito bite. We can barely manage a mosquito bite. We have all kinds of repellents and different things to do to avoid the discomfort of a mosquito bite. And if we have that experience of how unpleasant that is, extrapolate that further, bring it to the level of an existence that's entirely built on preying one on another, one animal eating another, another hunted by another, and so forth. The suffering of killing and being killed is the suffering of the animal realm that we can connect to through this example. And when we compare with it out of our own experience of a mosquito bite, then we can have a deep going, visceral experience of clear knowing of how unbearable that would be.
Oh, tina si de kolcho ki dungala chasana. Tene ngaranso mi lidin di dingdu kurbu chiko tsawo je kerne kilometer chik komba pone dona. Pe kala kawra. Di nyamnyong di pe shane dine 둔독이 꼴쪽이 둥을디 라삼다나 너도 그루 지고도 그네 킬로미터 찍담도 대양 되게 깔아가고요나 아니 둔독이 루딘 나나에 아니 시행이 라마메 봐 꼴쪽 집에 둥을디 토도 밤나 간다서 영사 삼로다나 되네 대양 살라메 봐인바 이시께 텔라 세치도 템바니오라샤나 뇽아차르 용그래 티 냠뇽디 베메세 게침불 살라메 바이메디 뇽아치 차르도 티 냠뇽디 베 게침불에서 텔라 테네드는 가도 취기 표현디더니 통투 그래 you can feel the 취기 인데네 디 냠뇽들 때문에 취기 인데 통투 그래서 action speaks louder than word 자 디 냠뇽디면은 데 취기 표현데 디시게면 특성마도 similar 속투고만 냠뇽디 얘나 되네 디기 취기 표현 따투 그래 취기 표현 서로도 그래 디인데 가서 이 디 게침버려서 그래
In addition to preying on one another, animals suffer from servitude. In our own human existence, we can just connect with the experience of having to carry a heavy load for a long distance as we walk along with a heavy pack or something like this. And we can extrapolate from that. How difficult is it to do that for even a kilometer? And imagine what it was like, what it would be like to have to suffer the involuntary servitude that animals undergo. Think on that and develop to deep-going certainty, a powerful visceral experience of just how unbearable it would be. The sense is to evoke that experience as though it were happening for you based on the experiences you have in your life. And then to establish recollection, mindfulness in that experience with a very strong focus so that we're actually marinating in that experience. That experience of just how unbearable that would be is an incredibly important one to cultivate, to evoke that experience and to really instill the understanding of how unbearable it is what allows us to see with immediacy the great benefits and advantages of the Dharma. When we understand that the Dharma is beneficial in its ability to allow us to avoid this kind of experience, we see that with clarity. Action is speaking louder than words. Without a visceral sense of that, without a felt sense of what it is like to not have the resources of Dharma, then our Dharma understanding remains at the level of words alone. It doesn't touch our mind. It doesn't move our hearts. It is through having our own experiential understanding that we're able to truly understand the benefits and advantages of Dharma. This is absolutely essential.
Hola, tigida ngensungi nimi komsul dang kom gwebe gimse torti jeshore. Teni dering desha gre. Tetar chusum jebe gebe tawadi ramsin okongda. 다 디와 당보디 다기 시사서 다 디와 니바들더니 렌 torti jesh기. 디와 니바디 키랑기로나 당보.
Alaso.
온라 여러 디와.
So So that explains briefly the way to meditate on the disadvantages of the negative rebirths. And I'd like to direct my attention to the remaining questions. I've already answered the first of the 5 questions. And then the second question is, what degree of spiritual maturity is someone who acts with virtuous motivation to genuinely help others in this life, but does not believe in future lives? What is the fruition of their virtuous practice?
What is the cause of someone have so much power
Ale.
that they are able to kill
Oh,
the
Tuchina.
count being?
Sorry, I have a different order than Drupon Khenpo. The second question that he's going to address is, what is the cause of someone having so much power that they're able to kill countless beings?
All of what is the cause of so much power, having so much power? Power in power use the Nyamongi Jagora. The misuse Jagora, power the Miguel the top Sigmara. Koran to get the name Longje Wangtang or knowledge that this is somebody Yinjingi Chadi, Lake Chadi, any Kyonama Sonam Jevigura. In a day than the misuse Chigora, Sonam Jividi, any visual Lobatangora, visual Lobatan the Garden, similar Lochus Doyamara, Sedil Shimbe on the Dora, Lendela Mong be Maribadi, Sedil Shimbe on the door, in Sedil Shimbe Dilatene, Nagelke, Tadoke. The Shadigi Nagelke, Tadoke, in Delatine Kondoke, Delatine, Koran the Poverty, Visual Lovatam, in Sinjin Mambu Sok Jebala Sova Dilo Chigora. The Gudi Giore Hinean, any candy, Migora, candy Numungi Kenjero.
So the question again is, what is the cause of someone having so much power that they can kill countless beings? Drupon Khenpo says that the answer to that is, for example, someone can have great power and wage war with armies, as we're seeing nowadays, and kill many beings. But so what is the cause of that? The cause of the power to do that is virtue. But that virtue is not being put to good use. It's being misused because the conditions under which it's being used are governed by kleshas, negative emotions, disturbing minds, natural tranquility. It's impossible for power to arise from non-virtuous karma. Virtuous karma gives rise to power, to resources, to charisma, to knowledge. All of these are the result of virtuous karma. They are the result of merit gathered in previous lives. But that can be put to positive or negative uses. In this case, we're seeing power being misused. The application of the power is completely mistaken. Why is that? Because mind has not turned to Dharma. The power is governed by a mind that is completely obsessed with the things of this life, that is completely benighted when it comes to karmic causality. As a result, this mind is governed entirely by kleshas, such as pride, which gives rise to jealousy, which gives rise to aggression, and so forth. So while the power comes from a virtuous cause, the misuse of that power, killing many beings, is governed by non-virtuous conditions, such as these negative kleshas.
Hola. Tini lama gomoto sungido sonam digi barsere sungdo. This chigdi kinsodo. Sonam re yang digi barsere sina kinsoro. Ine da sonam digi barsere sadi sonam ye sonam gi degu da pena lui phundu soba longjo phundu soba. Tingsangi pombodo lui phundu soba yore longjo phundu soba yore khor phundu soba yore. 이 sonam gi degura. Digwa migewa sane lui phundu soba longjo phundu soba khor phundu soba thogu mara. Sonam gi degura. Ine yang lui phundu soba longjo phundu soba degi gare jigwa lamne tene ngagel ke thado ke tene nyumong ke gidwa. Nyumong degi shen neba chegidwa. Tene sonam di nyumong gi kendu dogudwa. Tijidi tene sonam gare chasong barse chasong. sonam digi barse de sore. Ti gare jene chare. Sharab meba. Sharab meba latini chare.
You can see how in this situation that arises out of merit, it can nevertheless serve as causes, as conditions for being obstacles and wrongdoing. That's rather strange, isn't it? That merit can serve as conditions for obstruction and wrongdoing. How does that work? Well, whenever we're talking about merit that leads to a positive existence, a good, strong body, resources, a retinue of people surrounding us, and so forth, these are all results of merit. The results happen, but then what happens with those results is up in the air. Even these results, these fruits of merit, can actually serve as causes for generating kleshas. These fruits of merit have the ability to generate pride, to generate jealousy, etc., based on that fruition of a positive existence with lots of wealth, good retinue, a good body, etc. In those circumstances, the fruition of merit is actually serving as the conditions for kleshas. It's actually becoming an obstacle. Why is that? How is it that this happens? It is due to a lack of prajna, a lack of precise knowledge that this occurs.
Hola, digida duanya bagile any jungye beraye. Tene lens duwa shinda dosal tene sanjimala len kegre dringa to so.
So I hope that helps to answer those questions, and we're going to leave it there for today because our time to end has passed.
Hola, tetro chosam jebe give to de rajin simjin tamje no tumo de rajin simjin tamje sangi goban tobe chidu mo adam molam gi tamjer na shu.
Now, please gather together all of the virtuous roots that have come from this listening to the genuine Dharma and dedicate them to ourselves and all beings in a similar situation, that we and all beings may attain the level of Buddhahood. And please make the aspiration and dedication prayers so that this may happen. Cheers.
나 순전한 거 순전한 거 말하고도 good have a good day. 나도 순전한
Thank you, everyone. If the recorders will stop recording now, that's perfect.